Hello and welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and all the places at Hawk Blogger. And it is a sad Monday morning on multiple fronts. Not only did the Seahawks really not play a good football game yesterday against the Green Bay Packers, but our friend Robert Mays unable to join us this morning as he had to put his pup down. And sorry for Robert and his wife. And that's a tough one. It's been a dog they've had for a long time, and this kind of came out of the blue. So rough time for them. We had to reschedule our Robert Mays Monday. That is, courtesy of Pagliacci Pizza. So we will do that another time this week. So keep an eye out on that. But also that kind of left me a little bit. I just found out literally like 5 minutes ago that he wasn't going to be able to make it. So this is probably not going to be the longest episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. There's some things I could definitely go deeper on, but I'll admit it, folks. I'm still recovering from that game. That game took a lot out of me. I think that the gap between how this team played and how I think that they should have been capable of playing was so large that it's a good example of why I got into doing my blog and podcast and analysis all those years ago, is because I hated this feeling. I hated just running smack headfirst into a wall that I didn't see coming. And that's the case here. Like, I take a lot of pride in my ability to do analysis for football and NFL games. And I don't think I'm anywhere close to perfect, but I'm right more than I'm wrong. And especially when it comes to the Seahawks, and especially when I'm putting the amount of time I've been putting into it this year, I think I've had even a deeper level of understanding about what to expect from this team, especially after the stabilization that really started after week 9. But this game shouldn't have been possible. It shouldn't have been possible for this team to be run out of their own stadium on Sunday Night Football with a good defense. And that's what they did. And it shouldn't have been possible to exit this game with a Green Bay Packers defense that has one of the worst pass rush rates in the NFL, finishing with 7 sacks, and the Seahawks with one of the best pass rush rates in the NFL, ending with 0. Like, that shouldn't have happened. And Mike Macdonald talked about it on his post-game press conference he said we got out-coached multiple times, outplayed. He said, everybody, and if you connect some of that as well, there's a little kind of homage to what he had said in his NBC interview about protecting players. He's like, I'm not, you're not going to get me to say that the players, to pin this on the players. He clearly feels like the players, there were some problems. And I think that'll be something we'll talk about as time progresses. But I really got the impression that as much as he tries to protect everybody, I think he was pretty unhappy with the offensive game plan. I think he was unhappy with the play calling. That's just my gut instinct. And when I went back and I wrote my morning after column, which you can read up there at hawkblogger.com, and I looked at specific moments in this game where there was an opportunity for Ryan Grubb to make the decision between running and passing. And time again, this was early in the game still, he chose to pass. Some of these are debatable. Like, first one, 3rd and 4 on the very first drive. That's not you've got to run the ball down. I wouldn't say that that's a clear run play, but there are plenty of teams that run the ball on 3rd and 4. The Seahawks have done it earlier this year and gained first downs. But they didn't, and they got sacked on that play. There was, on the next drive, a 3rd and 2. That very much is a down that you could choose to run on. They passed. They were sacked. That same drive, Zach Charbonnet had a 16-yard run earlier in that drive. So it wasn't like they had not had any success running the ball, but he chose to go with a pass. The next drive, the 3rd drive, another 3rd and 4, another pass. This time it was complete to Jake Bobo. There was, on the same drive, there was another 3rd and 2, 3rd and short, another pass. This time it was incomplete. Like, there was nobody open. Gino threw it to Zach Charbonnet, but they were very fortunate. There was a holding penalty on the defense. First down. So there was another 3rd down, 3rd and 3. Same drive. Pass. This time, Gino scrambled for what became a first down. I think there was another penalty on top of that. And then on top of that, you get to the 13-yard line, the Packers' 13-yard line on that possession. Pass on first down. Pass on second down. Pass on third down. Interception. And, well, actually, I don't know if that was the interception. But anyway, there was 3 straight passes. So I just cannot square that with what I've learned from and about Mike Macdonald and the identity that I think he wants for this team. I don't think it even matters if the defense is in a situation where they're kind of daring the Seahawks to pass, which I don't believe. I have to go back and look at the film. It would be surprising to me if a defense was daring the Seahawks to pass, that they were so committed to the run, that the numbers were so clear that you've got to pass the ball. That does not make sense because the Seahawks have not become a great rushing team enough to demand that kind of attention. So it feels like not only are there not numbers to demand a pass, there's probably the opposite, if anything, and they're still choosing to throw the ball and not run it. And for Mike Macdonald to watch that game unfold, to not only have that happen, but have the Packers come out, ask for the ball, and run it down the Seahawks' throats for pretty much the whole first half. I just cannot get it out of my head that this was the game where Ryan Grubb and Mike Macdonald are going to part ways. That's my impression. Now, maybe that'll look like a silly take 3 weeks from now or what have you, but I am not. I was seeing the evidence of maybe this run game getting started in a way that could start to close the gap between what I think Ryan Grubb wants to call and what the identity should be for this team. But this was like not just a step back. I have a feeling that this is an image that will not be able to be expunged from Mike Macdonald's head. I think that's kind of where I walk away from this game. In some ways it feels like the Steelers game from last year, where it was like, cannot abide by that kind of defensive performance again. This one, for me, offensively, the Seahawks defense versus the Packers offense was always going to be a really big battle. And those are two of supposedly the best units at their respective areas in the NFL. And to start this game, Matt LaFleur, he got one on Mike McDonald. He did. He outcoached him. He was ahead of him, it felt like, through a lot of the night, to be honest. But those are two good units going against each other. And yes, I still do believe the Seahawks defense is a good unit. But on offense for the Seahawks, they're going against a pretty flawed Packers defense. And one that had some real weaknesses to be exploited. And the Seahawks came into that game relatively healthy outside of Ken Walker, and I don't think that was certainly not the difference in this game. So to me, it felt like there was an opportunity, if you had a good game plan, that you could exploit the Packers defense, because frankly, a lot of folks have. So I don't think this is a situation where they'll I don't think they're going to fire Ryan Grubb during the season. I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's awful. This feels much more like irreconcilable differences where when they look back at this season, come to the off season, that they will say, you know what? I respect you. I think you're a good coach. I wish you nothing but the best. I will give you recommendations and say good things about anyone that asks. But I don't think we're a good match. I think we're probably better off apart than we are together. And that's a shame. It's a shame. I've been very consistent in that. I've been a Ryan Grubb promoter. I wanted him here. I think I've been really patient, and I still think he's a very good offensive play caller. I believe that to be true. I just think that there's a mismatch here. And I think that the mismatch is also contributing to why things are feeling disjointed. I have a feeling that some of the plays, the under center stuff that feels so, what's the word? Awkward is one word that comes to mind, but it feels like it feels so basic. It feels so amateur. It just doesn't feel like it's evolved much. And that's just a weird thing. Under center football should be so natural to any NFL team. My sense is that some of these things are the defensive coaching staff is like, no, you shall have this kind of, under center play action stuff in your offense. And you end up with something that's kind of this gross amalgamation of multiple different philosophies that don't really fit well together and are not meshing. And they're doing their best. I don't fault anybody. I don't think anyone's intentionally I feel differently about Ryan Grubb than I do about Shane Waldron for a lot of reasons, but main one being is I've seen Ryan Grubb make fantastic play calls in really challenging moments, and I've seen him put players in positions and accentuate players in ways that I just don't feel like I saw Shane Waldron do. And Shane Waldron had no history of play calling before. He had literally never called plays before he came to Seattle. And I think that showed time and again. I think what we're having here is just this philosophical mismatch going on. And I think the Seahawks lose this game probably either way. So again, this is not me pinning it on Grubb. I none of it's meant to be that. But if I'm just sitting back and evaluating this as authentically and genuinely as possible, it felt like the offensive performance and the offensive game plan was pretty damning in that one. And to see Zach Charbonnet finish the night averaging almost 7 yards a carry and getting 8 carries, that's not good. That's a problem. And so anyway, that's kind of one of the pieces that comes to mind for me. I did, there was there were a few different moments where I thought that the offensive line had some moments, and guess what? They were when they were doing run blocking. I thought Jalen Sundell had some good moments pulling. I saw some good counter plays that looked like similar to what we've seen before. I just didn't see it that often, and it felt like a change up as opposed to the main thing. And I know the Packers are a good run defense, and I get why you'd want to exploit some of their past defense weaknesses, but it just the ratio just felt really off, and the sequencing felt off. So that's kind of the bigger takeaway that I had. I think that the defensive performance was not quite as bad as it initially felt to me as I kind of reflected on it. There were adjustments. They were able to mostly stop the Packers offense in the second half until the end when Sam Howell threw a terrible pick and they turned that into a kind of miraculous touchdown catch. I was disappointed in the way that the defense came out, and I was disappointed to see that there was a team that could still push them around the way that they did. That won't go away. And there's some rumors out there, depending on how real they are, about where players were or specific players were spending time the nights before the game. And I'll just say, like, Reek Woolen had a really bad performance. That was not anywhere close to a shutdown corner. That was, I mean, him misplaying that jump ball, him drawing a pass interference penalty because he kind of panicked in the moment. Like, he's got to be better. And I think there's legitimate questions about how much he is taking the coaching that I know is coming his way, and whether he's taking this job seriously enough. And that might be something that he would really disagree with. And I hope that he proves that to be totally false. But there's been a number of times this year where in the big moment, he's not been the shutdown corner that I think this team really is counting on him to be. And the thing with Reek Woolen is, it's never about talent. The guy's got more talent than maybe any corner that's ever suited up. I mean, physically, he's got unreal talent to bring to that position. I think there's just some questionable decisions and some detail issues there that are problematic. This is not a team in Green Bay that has like a bunch of, like, they don't have a number one receiver. They don't have a dominant receiver. They have a bunch of number two quality guys that are solid. But Reek Woolen in a game like this, you'd expect him to be a place where people go to get interceptions, to get pass breakups, for him to just shut these guys down. Instead, he was a big part of the problem in this game. So, a disappointing game. We heard from Mike McDonald this morning that he and Geno Smith texted. They don't have any of the imaging stuff done yet. They'll find out, but that Geno is optimistic about his knee. That's good news. I think the idea of watching the next 3 games with Sam Howell playing behind this offensive line, going against teams like the Vikings and Jared Verse and whatever, like, that would be pretty rough. I hope Geno's okay. I hope he can play. But we'll find out. That's something we'll find out a little bit later today. I think there's at least something in Super Chat. There's a new member, Droidian. Welcome back, Droidian. I think you've been a member in the past. Good to have you. And if you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. I would appreciate that. And I think, what we're going to find out this week is whether this team is able to recover and really, especially defensively, change the outcome, because the Vikings are not as good of an offensive team as the Packers are, but they're maybe twice as good of a defensive team. And so even without looking at the details, I think you're going to have to look at the defense needs to hold up its end. This needs to be a game where the Vikings have trouble scoring 15 points, 16 points, 17 points. Like, that has to be the type of game that you play as a defense. And in order to do that, they're going to have to be a lot better than they were this week. So they got to turn that around, and they got to get there. They've shown before that they can be resilient. I still believe they have the talent on the defensive side of the ball for that to happen. But it was rough. It was a rough one for sure. I think this is a pretty bitter pill for Seahawks fans, and I think for that team. So we will see what they're made of this week. Got a super chat from Aaron Sherwood. If anything, this performance is damning about how bad the NFC West is. 3 of the 4 wins came from this division. Yeah, I don't know how bad the NFC West is. I think the NFC North is really, really good. I think it legitimately is one of the best divisions ever, and I think they're playing really, really well. I think they're all really well coached as well. And sucks for the Lions, man. The amount of injuries that they had out of this game and out of this season, they are, man, it's going to be a rough road for them. I hope that somehow they can recover, but that's a fantastic football team. And the Vikings and the Packers are pretty damn good as well. The fact that the Bears have lost 7 straight, we'll see what happens tonight. But I don't think that's going to be an easy game for Seattle either. Mike, a member for a month. Well, great to have you. Thank you for being here. Old School gives a super chat for some Burger King. Appreciate that, Old School. Yep. And yeah, so we'll talk to Mike McDonald later today. For now, I think I'm going to wrap there on a pretty short edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Apologies for the quick one and the lack of prepared focus for this episode, but those are the topics that were kind of top of mind for me. We will figure out when we'll get on with Robert Mays later this week. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Give the show a like, click subscribe, and I will see you all soon. Take care.